Belisarius Prime is here. So, is he the new cavalry meta like all the cavalry simps really want? Or is he just another commander that we should be skipping? Join me to find out. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another Rise of Kingdoms gameplay episode from your very own Shappy Gaming. Today, we are going to be talking about the one and only Belisarius Prime. Belisarius Prime landed in the game maybe a week or so ago, and there has been a lot of speculation about this commander and how useful he actually is. And we did a testing on him, which we're going to be going through today, and we're going to be talking about the different reports that we got, and whether or not this means that Belisarius Prime is a commander that you should be adding into your marches, or whether you might want to consider skipping him and saving for the next round of infantry commanders. And perhaps more importantly, if he is skippable, why does this matter and what impact does this actually have to the game? So, without further ado, let's talk about some of the tests that we did and the basis for which we went into it. Now, we've been through this and we've talked about tests before. Now, testing Belisarius Prime is actually really challenging. And the reason for that is that Belisarius Prime is a single target commander who is also primarily going to be focused on swarming different targets. And if we look at his skills, you can see he has a massive direct damage factor, and he has some pretty good debuffs. And his expertise increases all damage dealt. And I will call out, after checking with Lilith, this does not stack. So if multiple Belisarius attack the same target, it will not stack. However, this does stack with the debuff that Mulan has as part of her 4th skill. So if you guys want to check that out, let's pull this up here. Her 4th skill also increases the damage that a target takes. So in a perfect world, you're running Belisarius and you're running Mulan within your same 5-march setup. Now, as I said, testing Belisarius is kind of difficult because he is a single target commander and his main benefits are his big debuff, which is he increases the damage a target is taken and he debuffs their rage generation. So we wanted to really be tactical about this. What could we do to make this Belisarius testing a little bit more valuable than usual? And as usual, all of these testing videos are going to be played directly above my head. You can see them in the little box there. So I worked with Caveman, who, huge shout out to him, who instamaxed Belisarius after the first spin. And this is what we decided we were going to do. I ran Ho Chu Bing with Joan of Arc as my march. I intentionally left Ho Chu Bing out for 30 seconds each and every time to make sure that his first skill didn't cause any complication, and beyond that, there's no variability with Ho Chu Bing and Joan. We also had some testing with equipment and some testing without equipment. When I show you the equipment ones, I'll be sure that I pop up his equipment on the right side of the screen for you so you can actually go through and see what he had versus what I had. For my equipment, this was what I was using the entire time when we did do equipment-based testing. So here you go. Yes, there is some variability introduced by both the ring and the dagger, but based on our testing, I didn't really see anything that called out like, oh wow, this made a big difference. So just keep that in mind, but we wanted to keep this as realistic as possible. Now, different from previous duels and testings, we did not use formations because formations and armaments add a whole nother set of variability that we wanted to avoid. It's also worth calling out that we only used T4 troops within this testing, and that was deliberate to A, reduce the cost, but also in order to be able to repeat the testing as many times as possible. For each of these duels, we used 200k T4 cavalry for our testing. So let's see how this actually worked out. Let's actually look at some of these reports, because the first question that we had is, who the heck should you be pairing Belisarius with? So our first test was Alexander Nevsky with Belisarius, and as you can see, it won. It beat my Ho Chu Bing with Joan of Arc. There was no equipment here, so if we scroll down, you can see no equipment. Cavalry attack, cavalry defense, very normal. And our skill damage is both 3%. So that was our first testing, which I thought was actually pretty interesting because I knew that Belisarius was going to be good in 1v1s. I hoped that he would be the best commander for cavalry for 1v1s. And Caveman and I believe, are both VIP 17. He might be 18, but I don't know that that makes terribly much difference, and it didn't change from one duel to another. So he beat me in the first duel, right? This is our baseline. I had 25,000 severely wounded, and he had only 17,000, which was pretty good. Overall, the ratio was pretty close. I wasn't terribly blown away. And the other thing you have to remember here is Belisarius is not an AoE commander. So whereas I would be getting the benefit of Joan's AoE, you're not getting that with Belisarius. So that was our first duel. This was our baseline. Now, what about the next one? So this was the next one. Again, you see I'm using Joan of Arc. And now we used Ho Chu Bing with Belisarius. And to my surprise, it did even worse. So here we go. This was the first one, Nevsky with Belly. And here's the second. And you can see he dealt maybe a little bit more damage to me, but overall it was not terribly substantial. And I was actually pretty surprised by this. And I was surprised by it for a couple of reasons. One, Ho Chu Bing is also a single target commander. And so if you look at him, all he's doing is he's dealing a lot of damage to one commander, which makes him an interesting pair for Belly. Because if you're running Ho Chu Bing with Belly, then you have two single target commanders together. Now, with Nevsky, you also have a single target commander. But I actually prefer Nevsky because he has a really big debuff, where if you're swarming a single target, you do get the advantage of that debuff. Well, if you're running Belly with him and that March dies, you've lost a lot of your debuff in the field. So I was hoping that Ho Chu Bing with Belly would be really good, but it really was not. I lost the duel, but he barely hung on. You can see the trades were not nearly as bad as they were the first time around. And overall, I'm kind of underwhelmed by this. This is just my first impression. Looking at Ho Chu Bing with Belly, it's fine. They're two single target commanders who I would expect to beat me because they're dealing more skill damage. But I'm not wowed, right? This doesn't scream Meta March to me just yet. So now we tried a third pair. And this is Ho Chu Bing with Nevsky. And the reason that we did this, before you go, what are you doing, Chappie? The reason that we did this was because we wanted a baseline of the current best single target cavalry dueling march. This is the current best single target cavalry dueling march. It is Ho Chu Bing with Nevsky. And what you'll notice here is that he only took 19,000 severely wounded, and his power loss was 76.9. Here, his power loss was 71.4. And so what's interesting is you see I took a little bit more severely wounded, but it wasn't that dramatic. So I took 75,000 severely wounded in this duel. I took 26 in this one and 25 in this one. So overall, it was pretty close. My power loss was only 3,000 different between the two. Now, where I think Belisarius helped out here is that you are taking less damage. So overall, I think he did do better there. But looking at this, right, he had 50,000 left in here. He had 43,000 left in here. Does this mean Belisarius is the best dueling march? I would say yes. Based on what I'm seeing here, before we get into equipment, I would say yes, which is good. But when we look at the numbers here, you see 76,000 power loss versus 71,000 power loss. You're talking about maxing an entirely new commander with 690 legendary heads, which are not easy to come by. For that differential, 3,000 power loss and 5,000 power retained. For me, I don't think that's impactful enough. When you look back at some of our previous duels, and I'll link some on the top right side of your screen for you, you can see really, really dramatic changes between the two. But I'm not seeing that here. So, sure, Belisarius with Nevsky is the best dueling march there is today for cavalry. But is it so dramatic that you want to go and max a new commander? I don't know. Make that decision yourself. Let me know in the comment section below. For me, I'm not thinking so. So now we added some equipment. Again, I'll pop up his equipment on the right side for you. And you can see things were pretty close from an equipment standpoint. I had 165%, 95, 107. He had 176, 115, and 108. So based on equipment, I would expect that I'm probably going to lose this duel, which is fine, right? Because I lost all the others, so it's not that big of a deal. But this was our first duel again. We did our last duel. So we have Ho Chu Bing with Nevsky again. And as you can see, it really didn't make that much difference, which was interesting to me. But I guess our equipment was closely matched enough that it didn't make terribly much difference. So this is the duel to beat. Let's see if our Belisarius can beat it. So he had 276,000 kill points here, and I had 200,000. So here we see Ho Chu Bing with Belisarius beat it. 279 versus 276. That said, the damage dealt is almost identical. And yes, he did take dead here. We're not going to talk about it. I think his hospital is full. But is this that big of a deal? I think that's actually pretty good, because as we saw earlier, Ho Chu Bing with Belly was not the better march. So this adds a little bit of more interest to this to me. So I'm intrigued. I think this did better, which is good, because you would expect Belly to do better. So what about this next one? This was the most impactful. So here you see Ho Chu Bing with Joan of Arc and Nevsky and Belisarius. And as you can see here, I dealt way less damage. Way less damage. And he lost way less power. So if you look, 74,000 to 80,000. That's pretty substantial to me. And so this gives me a little bit more pause when I think about, should I be investing in this commander? Here I'm thinking maybe I should be. Just maybe. The kill points are really nice. But again, 50,000 units is not going to be enough to actually last in the field. And you have a single target march. Which means when you do get into murder ball scenarios, you're not getting that AoE effect. The other thing is, if you're running with Nevsky as a primary, the odds that this march gets targeted before Ho Chu Bing does, for me, is actually probably going to be pretty high. I would target Nevsky before Ho Chu Bing. But would you? Let me know in the comment section below. Now, I told you this duel was going to be different, and I promised it. This is not just your standard testing. And in order to actually test how effective Belisarius was with his main benefits, which are the rage debuff and the all damage taken, we needed to do something different. And so we did. So here, we did a swarm test, which again, you can see it right above my head. I haven't seen anyone else do this. If you look at the swarm test, I used Attila Takeda, no equipment. There was no equipment in this. And I had him swarm me with his current 5 marches that he is running. Yes, this does add some variability because the skills have variability, but this is actually pretty realistic. So I thought it was worth doing anyways. And as you can see, his marchers were Ho Chu Bing with William, Guan Scipio, Alexander Nevsky and Joan of Arc, Luce with Alex, and Herman with Zhuge Liang. And this was also really interesting because when you do look at this testing video above me, you'll see the poison stacks from Herman. That is really important because it lets you see how long I'm lasting in the field. So, overall, I had 29,000 severely wounded from this. I started with 200,000 cavalry, and I ended up with 29,000 severely wounded. And I got 141,000 kill points, and he got 293,000. So that's pretty substantial. I'd say that's pretty good. Attila is a pretty big unit, considering he's giving 50% trades to 5 marches swarming him. But how did this work when we swapped out one of these marches to include Belisarius? Because that's what you're going to be doing realistically. So here we are. We swapped out one of the marches for Belisarius, and you can already see we came down here and we swapped out the Nevsky Joan. So now you have Nevsky with Belly, and let's see how this actually changed things. So if we go back up to the top, you can see I dealt 151,000 kill points. Previously, I dealt 141,000. So I actually dealt more damage, which was intriguing to me. However, I took a little bit more severely wounded. I took 30,000 severely wounded, whereas previously I took 29,000. Realistically, that's not very much. And his kill points gained, he had 307 in the second duel and 293 in the first. So what are we seeing here? Overall, just based on this testing alone, Belisarius' active skill did not make that much difference, or his expertise skill, which was surprising because you would expect that all damage taken to make a substantial impact when you're swarming a target. However, you have to think about the opportunity cost of swapping out your other march. For example, Belisarius may be great, but Joan of Arc may also be spectacular. William may also be spectacular. So when you're fielding these marches, it's very important to think about the opportunity cost of doing that. What does this mean? Should I be maxing Belisarius? My guidance is as follows. If you have 5 full marches, and you have the extra heads, maybe consider it, because he does have that all damage debuff, which is going to be nice. And if you're swarming different targets in the field, you're swarming flags, that's going to be really helpful. However, if you're running 3 cavalry marches, totally, do it. You have nothing to lose. But if you're only running 2, you may want to consider the trade-offs that you're giving up. Joan of Arc is an amazing secondary. So is William. William is only 5551 to invest, whereas Bailey you need to fully max. So from a cheaper standpoint, William is going to be more viable. And Belisarius is not the new meta. Looking at this testing, he is not the new meta. So should you be investing in him or not? My guidance is if you have the extra heads and you're a cavalry main and you're running 3 marches, do it. However, if you are only running 2 cavalry marches and you're wondering if you should max him, I don't think he is differentiated enough to make me want to do that. For me, I, as a cavalry main and saving up my gold heads to hopefully invest in the next infantry commander, because as of right now, I'm running Nevsky Joan, Ho Chi Minh with William, Scipio with Guan Yu, Luce with Alex. Now, Alex is due to be replaced, and I can expect that there's going to be a nice pairing for Luce with Alex to get rid of Alex. Now, maybe they'll do that, or maybe they'll create another commander that will work with Scipio, but I have more versatility there than I do with my existing cavalry marches. I hope that you guys have enjoyed. If this has helped, drop a like, and be sure to hit that subscribe button right over there, bottom right-hand corner. Thank you all very much. Shappy out.